Well, my diagnosis, they're afflicted with the Biden avoidance syndrome. Well, Democrats, Van Jones, he knows that the 2024 cannot be about Joe Biden, or certainly not his policies. They're going to lose. Policies are not making America better or safer, the border more secure, which is why they need to revert to their old playbook. Joining me now to discuss this, Chris Bedford, executive editor of the Common Sense Society, and Sean Davis, co-founder and CEO of The Federalist. Sean, let's start with you. So how does the GOP use the lessons that we can glean from last night, to their advantage in 2024?
Well, I think there's two things they need to do. The first is realize that money matters and the message matters. When you look at Ohio, for example, the results there, the left spent a large amount of money, seriously outspent the Republicans. And then they were unified on their message. Whereas if you look at the different races throughout the country, whether it was Pennsylvania or Virginia or Ohio or Kentucky, there wasn't really a unified particular message from the Republicans. And so they need to put real money behind, they need to unify behind the message, and they need an actual compelling message that everyone can identify with. And then the second thing they need to do is they need to nationalize the issues. Instead of having a series of local issues across the country, they need to pick the one issue that the election is going to be about, and that's a referendum on Joe Biden's policies. If they can't do that, if they can't do either of those things, they're going to have a tough time in 2024.
All right, Chris Bedford, we're not going to get, plutocrat money. There's no way. Republicans aren't going to get big tech money. They're not going to get hedge fund money. So I'm not sure that's ever going to be kind of equalized. But what about that? They're tagging every Republican with abortion, and they're playing defense on that. Why not tag every Democrat with Joe Biden?
Well, they need to do some hard-hitting ads. You need to talk about the really emotional things. I mean, they tried to do that in Kentucky, tag him with Joe Biden, but there was a popular governor, partially because he's been so ineffective as a Democrat governor of Kentucky. I think what they want. The Democrats were really successful at pulling in the heartstrings. And this last couple races we saw in Virginia and in Kentucky, when they were talking about abortion, they had people who had been raped by family members talking straight to camera about this. When Republicans were talking about crime, they didn't have the family and the relatives of people who'd been executed by MS-13 in the state. They didn't have the family and the relatives sitting there talking straight to camera. They had actors coming on.
How would Lee Atwater have messaged these ads?
Exactly. I think people are afraid of the ghost of Willie Horton in the ad from Lee Atwater, and they don't want to talk about that anymore. But those sorts of ads where they talk about the real victims and the real consequences of crime, those people who are robbed and attacked by people who had been released by Soros prosecutors, that's one way to absolutely go. And also, look at Ohio, a place where the legislature passed a socially conservative bill, a place that's got higher on abortion initially, a place that's got higher church attendance than most states in the union. How could they have passed this constitutional amendment that's so obsessed with death? And the way they did it was by sneaking it through with the language of civil rights. Republicans ought to be trying to get ahead of these things, talking about the rights, talking about health, talking about life, and using these nice words, essentially, to get that agenda ahead before the left does. They're very good at it.
Now, Sean, this is a conundrum for a lot of folks because they see the media is always going to, of course, be on the side of the Democrats, always. It doesn't matter if it's Romney running in 2012 or McCain running in 2008. They were kind of acceptable Republicans. They were slaughtered by the media. The media is always going to be against them. Money is always going to be raised more in higher quantities by the Democrats. There's no question about that. So that's just a constant. I don't think people are going to be able to bet on changing that anytime soon.
That's true. What we really need from Republican candidates and from conservatives is a spine. We need some intestinal fortitude, and we need them to go out and boldly talk about the policies that they support that make America better, because I have no doubt that the policies on the right are far preferred by a majority of Americans than the policies that the left are pushing. Even on abortion, for example, the left is pushing abortion up to and through the moment of birth, funded by taxpayers. That is a heinous, awful, evil, extreme position, and yet Republicans have been cowed into just hoping they can just not talk about abortion and survive. No, we should absolutely be talking about the issues in an emotional way, just like Chris said, because when the people hear the facts and when they actually hear the arguments that conservatives believe, we win on those issues.
Yeah, they're for pot, porn, and abortion, basically, in an open border. That's kind of what they're for. And, Republicans are for growth, prosperity, peace, and a secure border.
Well, this is another tactic they used in Ohio that Soros-aligned groups really pioneered in Colorado. They put pot on the ballot. That creates new voters coming out. People who are going to show up for the first time.
Stoners.
People who aren't really informed, maybe necessarily. Yeah, stoners, essentially.
Stoners for Biden.
I don't know who could look at the results of legal marijuana and say, I want that in my state, but they did.
Yeah, we want California, Colorado,
Yeah.
Portland, Oregon. It's all working out so well there. All right, Sean, big news out of the Minnesota Supreme Court tonight. They dismissed the challenge to President Trump's remaining on the ballot there because they're making some 14th Amendment argument that would supposedly wipe him off the ballot. It's been rejected by anyone I know who clerk with me and people who understand the Constitution. But nevertheless, that is a strategy they have. At least for now, one state Supreme Court said, no way.
Yeah, it's great news that they did that. Unfortunately, the Democrats aren't going to stop trying, and I think they're eventually going to find a state where their insane legal theories are accepted, maybe California or Vermont. So that battle's not over yet.
Sean and Chris, thank you so much. Great to see you both.